Hey guys, how's it going? Real Randy Chavez here. Please like and subscribe. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Patreon is always a thing. Whatever you guys want. We have a Giovanni's Gyarados. Diving right in here. Call me Greg Louganis. First edition, raw copy. And I would have given it an 8 to a 9, sold for 81. So if, the 9 sells for like 120, then they got a good deal. If it would have gotten 8, they might have overpaid for right now. By the time they grade it, comes back an 8. Maybe that 8 shoots up to what it is now. Maybe it'll shoot up to 81, maybe 90. Who knows? We have Blaine's Arcanine. Same thing. First edition, raw. I would have given it an 8 to a 9. Sold for 258. My God. If that comes back a 9, that's a fair price. 8, they might have overpaid. But even still, because the 10s are, again, 4-figure item. That Blaine's Arcanine, that PSA 10 is going to be $1,100, $1,300. The next one that comes out might hit the $1,500 mark because, all right, Charizard's always going to carry premium because it's Charizard. So if that's, the last one sold for $2,200, and up until that point, Arcanine was right behind it. And the reason for that is because that Charizard has 274 copies, PSA 10. Arcanine has less than half of that. It has like 130 maximum. It's 120 something, maybe a little more since last time I checked, but I think that's due for an increase also. So, yeah, the 9 will go up. Maybe if that comes back an 8, I think that person has to wait a while, maybe about a year, before that 8 reaches that 200 mark. Again, I don't know if it will, even in a year, because that's a lot of growth for an 8. Either way, moving on to a Neo Hollow. It was a lot of them. All Neo Hollows, and they were all PSA 7. The 1/8 for Neo Genesis. The only 8 was Ampharos. So you have a PSA 7 Lugia and a PSA 7 Typhlosion, T17. And because the T17, Typhlosion number 17, the 8 sold, I think, recently for like $1,200. So if that, yeah, I know, the 8 sold for what the 9 sold for like a week ago. Heckin' insane. But so a 7, let's say, is half of that, $600 right there. And a Lugia, a PSA 8 will sell for, what's the 8 sell for? $400? So that's two, yeah, so you're having like $800 right there just between those two cards, not including everything else as a complete set. So I think that's pretty good growth. Yeah, that's pretty good growth. If the 8 sells for $400 for the Lugia as $200, yeah, so that was a good job by them. Jungle Set Clefable, first edition PSA 9 Hollow, $202, record price point. A lot of these are record price points now. Nidoqueen, first edition PSA 9 from the Jungle Set as well. That's $142. Vileplume, first edition PSA 9, only sold for $96. Almost at that 100 mark. Pinsir, first edition PSA 9, Jungle Set again. These are all from Jungle Set, unless I say otherwise. That sold for $122. These are all at auction, by the way. Victory Bell, first edition PSA 9, sold for $112. We had a Kangaskhan, first edition PSA 9, sell for $128. A Wigglytuff, I think this is a record price point as well. First edition PSA 9 sells for $201. I'm not sure what the 10 sells for. I don't think I've ever actually seen one sell. Not that they don't exist, not that they're like uber rare. It's just, I just haven't seen one. We have a Scyther, record price point for this Scyther. First edition PSA 9 sold for $380. And it makes sense if you have a 10 that sells for $1,200 to $1,500. Yeah, that makes sense. Again, a little bit on the lower end. Maybe the 10 should be higher. Maybe the 9 should be a little lower. I don't know, but it is on the lower end of that price point. So congrats for that, Scyther. We had a Pidgeot, first edition PSA 9, sell for $177. I thought that might have been a little low because I thought Pidgeot, the PSA 10, would sell for more than Scyther. Maybe there's more 9s of the more PSA 9s for Pidgeot, and that's why, because they're so readily available. Maybe that's why it got half of what the Scyther did. I'm just kind of spitballing here. I don't actually know. We had a Flareon. Evolutions always carry a premium. First edition PSA 9 sold for $255. Snorlax, first edition PSA 9 sold for $303. Record price point for Snorlax. This one I think, I don't want to say mistake, but maybe these two people kind of didn't know what they were doing, but this is a Jolteon. First edition PSA 9. It's not even PSA 10. And the PSA 10 has 123 copies. This is the one with the symbol. I was the one without the symbol. That little jungle symbol on the right of the card. That will carry even higher of a premium because there's less of those. But 123 PSA 10 copies, and the 9 has to have more than that, and it sold for $611. The last copy, I think, sold for like $1,000 for the 10. So the 9, again, there was only 2 guys that bid this high. The second bid, or the third bid was like 175. So I think that's the next 9 to sell is going to be like 350, maybe 400. But even that is probably a little high. We had a Vaporeon, first edition PSA 9, sold for 355. So yeah, the Flareon, the Vaporeon, both evolutions, 255 to 355. That Jolteon comes in with 611. I don't know. We had a Lieutenant Surge's Raichu, first edition PSA 10, sold for 205. I think that's undervalued now as well. I think that should be a $300-$400 card. Because you don't see the 10s. You see the 10s, they never go for auction though. They're always listed at like a certain amount, and then people just buy them at that amount. So I'm very curious to see what that would go for auction. Erica's Venusaur, first edition PSA 9, sold for 100. It was 176 or best offer. They probably got minimum 150 for that. We had a Giovanni's Nidoking, first edition raw copy. I would have given that like a 7. You know, I had some whitening and a lot of whitening on the back. Sold for $45, which might be a fair price for a 7. Maybe someone just bought that for a binder set because it's not worth a ton, and they're just like, oh, all right, I'll get that and just put it in my binder. So right now, it really wouldn't be worth grading it. We have a Dark Weezing, first edition PSA 10, sold for $135. I think that's a record price point for Weezing. And I know that the 10 is typically, you know, they go for much higher, but Weezing, because it's so easy to grade and it's not that good, it's not that aesthetically pleasing of a card. That's probably why we got that. Giovanni's Nidoking, first edition PSA 10, it was at $320 or best offer. And because I thought those were undervalued at $220, so the fact that it sold for $320, again, or best offer could have been $250, but we're seeing some growth in that finally. Jumpluff from Neo Revelation, first edition PSA 10, sold for a $283. And then we have a base unlimited Blastoise. I didn't know this was worth this much, being unlimited. Again, PSA 9, sold for $255. So nice. We had a Jumpluff, first edition PSA 9, sold for $57. I think that's a record price point for the 9 as well. We also have a Delibird from Neo Revolution. I've never even used Delibird in like the games or anything, and I never played with them in the trading card game, but it was just cool artwork. It's just cool to see. I don't know. I just like the way it looks. That sold for, where did it go? $310. I think that's a record price point for Delibird. Togetic Neogenesis, first edition PSA 9, sold for $125. Neogenesis Blossom, first edition PSA 10, sold for $280. All right, getting into the home stretch here. Giovanni's Gyarados, first edition PSA 10, had 400 or best offer. That sold, I think, like 3 days ago. We don't know what it sold for. I'm going to guess 380 to 400. And then we had another one go on auction that sold for 405. That was the final bid. So, and that sold after this. I think because that was up to like 366, you know, the auction in like the first couple of days, someone probably saw that and say, this is going to go to 400 minimum. So he bought that 400 or best offer, and they were correct because that ended at 405. Giovanni's Gyarados I've seen a lot of growth in the past few months. Misty's Golduck, first edition PSA 8. It was listed at $65. Someone bought it up. I think that's a good price as well, because if the 9 is criminally undervalued at like 130, then I should have bought the 8. That should have been me. My fault. We had a Giovanni's Machamp, first edition PSA 9, listed for $85. No or best offer option. Someone bought it. And because, I don't know if it's because I've said it, that if the 10 is stupidly undervalued, I got 2 of them for $120 each. I should not have been able to do that. That's a minimum $200 card. It makes sense that someone bought that for $85, like, because they know. They know. We had a Typhlosion 17, first edition, PSA 8. This was a $1,200 one. The one, that 9 sold for $1,200 like a week ago, and now the 8 selling for $1,200. It's insane. We have a lot of movement with T17 because there's a few of them out there now. It's not just one. There's one listed for $3,000. There's one listed for $4,000 or best offer. So there's a couple of them out there now. But again, those 10s, you can't get the 10. Just to reiterate, if nobody saw it the other day, or even if I didn't say it, I think I did though. Some guy on E4 had said that he knows a guy, either he has a 10 or he knows a guy with a 10, and he tracked down 8 more. And again, there's only 10 PSA 10 copies. He tracked down the other 8, and all of those people either won't sell or they're in a financial position where they don't need to sell. So there's only one other PSA 10 copy out there where maybe he might looking to sell. He or she might be looking to sell, but that's such a rare card. If you sell that, you're probably never going to get that card again. So people have to get the 9s because they and I have 2, but they have to get the 9s because there's no 10s available. So we're going to moving on past that one. We had a Giovanni's. All right, so we had a Brock's Ninetale and Giovanni's Machamp. Yes, that one was interesting as well because there was both of them listed in the same auction. Like, these are the 2 cards you get. And again, it was an auction. They're both first edition PSA 10. So Brock's Ninetales, which I don't think has ever sold for more than $200, and Giovanni's Machamp, which I also don't think has ever sold for more than $200. Both of them together, $461. So either we have, let's say they split in half, and they're $230.50 each. Regular price points for both. I think the Machamp's probably worth a little bit more than the Brock's Ninetales. I haven't seen too many Brock's Ninetales out there, so maybe it's a little bit more scarce, and someone just saw it and just like, I don't care. If I get a Machamp, cool. I just want it for the Brock's Ninetales because I don't see too much of that card. Maybe that's what happened. That's it for the. Oh, also, Metal Energies. I just, again, put my money where my mouth is. I saw a 9 up there. A Metal Energy Neo Genesis, first edition PSA 9. Minimum should be, the bare bones minimum should be $250. I saw it for $75. Sold. Bought it right there. Immediately. Didn't even check to see if the buyer had any feedback. I checked after and they had 100% feedback, so it's great. But anyone sees them, buy those up. Again, I just bought 8 PSA 8 copies and then a 9 copy. So this is putting my money where my mouth is. That's what we're doing here. So hope you guys had a good one. I will talk to you later, okay? Bye.